Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much. Once again, we are in another episode. Today we have a super special guest. Dr. John Walton is coming to the show. And as you can see on the thumbnail of this episode, we're going to be talking about Genesis 1 and ancient cosmology. I just want to say this, it's very important. And sometimes for us layman people, that's not axiomatic or it's not like a second nature kind of thing. But it's quite important to interpret the Bible in its ancient Near Eastern context. So, what could be better if we can bring someone who has spent most of his life studying this stuff and writing about it, and definitely someone who can give us better insight. What is the purpose behind the way these people manufactures their narratives around Genesis 1? What many things are we missing if we don't interpret it with the proper lenses? So today in this episode, we're going to be talking about Genesis 1, ancient cosmology, the theology behind it, and probably you can find some surprises right there. So, with that in mind, let's get Dr. Joe Walton to the show. But before, we're going to hit the intro. Okay. Dr. Walton, can you hear me now?
I sure can.
Okay, give me just a moment because I cannot hear you and that's not okay. You can hear me right, okay? Maybe this is now the issue here. Just give me just one moment here. Oh yeah, it changed. Okay. Uh, you can hear me right now, okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, so yeah, so I was saying, everybody, welcome back to your Veriano Dijiste Once podcast. Remember, this is a podcast where we discuss religion because it's important, but critically analyze it because that's even more important. This is today your host, Marv, and today we have a super special guest. Of course, I'm talking about Dr. John Walton. Dr. Walton, how are you doing today?
Doing very well and happy to be here to discuss these important issues.
Definitely, I agree with that through and through. I was saying, Dr. Walton off camera that it's just a super special thing that he is here because what better thing just to have somebody who has spent a great deal of his life. I mean, studying this stuff, and not only studying it, but writing about it. I mean, there's lots you can go and check on Amazon somewhere. Whatever is your favorite book website, and you can find Dr. Walton's books right there. He is addressing the ancient Near Eastern context of the Bible because that's the very place how the Bible came to me. That's the original social, religious context, and we need to have our minds in that thing definitely. Today we're gonna be talking about Genesis 1 and the ancient Near Eastern thought. For most people, that might sound weird. Just hold your horses because at the end of this episode, I hope that's not the case, and you can have a better picture of what the Bible is all about. Dr. Walton, can you give us just a brief introduction, who you are, your credentials? Just let us know. So, for anybody who is not aware, who is John Walton, please go ahead.
Sure. So I did my doctoral studies at Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati. It was a
Yeah.
program that combined Hebrew Bible and the ancient Near Eastern backgrounds. And so I had a chance to become acquainted with the languages and the literature and the history that all have become so significant for my work. After my graduate work, I began teaching. I was at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then I shifted over to Wheaton College, which is in the western suburbs of Chicago, and taught there for 22 years until my retirement 2 years ago. And so, basically, in two institutions where I've been teaching this material. I've published a lot on this perspective. I've done Bible backgrounds, study Bibles, Bible backgrounds, commentaries, and books like the Lost World series, which explore specific issues regarding ancient Near East and the Bible.
There you have it, people. Definitely, Dr. Walton is our guy. Yeah. So, I mean, your Lost series, the Lost World. It's I think it has become like a landmark work in your books. I mean, every time we hear the Lost World of something in books terms, my mind goes directly Dr. Walton. That's the guy. I mean,
Well,
you put a
new
lot of
one,
there.
new
Yeah.
one just came out. New explorations in the Lost
Exactly.
World,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That's the newest.
I'm hoping it'll
Yeah.
be translated into Spanish soon.
I think it will be. I mean, I'm all confident. I mean, I need to say this, and I'm going to say in Spanish, Dr. Walton, with your permission.
Sure.
Personas consigan eso porque en español el trabajo del doctor John Walton ha recibido mucha información en español, ¿verdad? Especialmente publicado por Kerigma. So yeah, Dr. Walton, I'm just saying that people in Spanish, you have had a great reception on behalf of Spanish people. Just I was saying to Dr. Walton, he was in Guatemala a couple of days ago. He was invited to do a lecture on Ceteca, which is the Seminario Teológico de Centroamérica. That's how we say in Spanish. In English, it would be something like Theological Seminary of Central America, something like that. But yeah, Dr. Walton spent how many days were you there?
Well, I was there for a week and a half, but I was only at
Yeah,
Sateca for about 3 or 4 days. I was also at Mariano Galvas University.
great, great, great. And of course, I'm pretty sure you were not only giving the lecture, you were signing books, getting to talk with people, which is
Certainly.
great. I mean, it's great. Uh, I had you, okay, I understand you met a lot of people, but there was one guy there. I'm not sure if you, but that person, he went there and I said to him, hey, it would be great that you come to the show, be my co-host, and we go and interview Dr. Walton. And he said, that would be great, but I just can't speak English. So that's unfortunate because he has a photo where you are signing his book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate, but the good thing is that Dr. Walton is here, and we're gonna jump right into today's discussion. Dr. Walton, I have a couple of questions here that I just sent you previously, but I want to keep it in a very conversational way, if you don't like, if you don't mind, um, because I mean, this topic, I understand 1 hour and a half won't do justice. There's a lot to talk about this. There's a lot to discuss. But Dr. Walton, do you think how can I say this? Uh, Many people don't realize about this idea that the Bible is an ancient book, and since they don't realize about that notion, the way they read it and interpret it might be affected in a positive or negative way. So, my first question to you, Dr. Walton, today in this interview goes like this: how can the ancient Near Eastern thought help us better understand and interpret the message Genesis 1 intended to convey to its original audience?
So when we think about ancient Israel,
Yeah,
we know the time period that we're talking about. We know that they were part of the ancient world that included Babylonians and Assyrians and Egyptians and Canaanites and Hittites. And so we know that they existed in that world. We know that God was trying to help them think differently in a number of important ways. But at the same
yeah,
time, he was communicating into their culture. And there are many areas uh, of Israelite thinking that God didn't change. It was just part of their culture. And as a result, we discover that the ancient Israelites thought a lot more like Babylonians than they do like us.
Yeah.
They don't know our world, they don't know our culture, they weren't talking to our culture. And the Bible is written to them. It's in their language. It assumes their cultural assumptions. It assumes their cultural world. And therefore, there's lots that goes without being said because it's just God communicating into that culture. So the Old Testament is Israelites writing to Israelites, and they assume an awful lot about an Israelite culture. And so when we read the Bible, we can understand the message of it in general better against the backdrop of the culture. Now, that's especially true on Genesis 1, because Genesis 1 deals with how do people think about creation?
Hmm.
In our world, we think about it certain ways. It's often scientific, it's
Yeah.
very material, it assumes our view of the expanding universe,
Yeah.
and often includes things like Big Bang cosmology. And so all of the science that informs our understanding of the world around us comes into the question of creation because we think of creation in terms of those issues. But we can't assume that Israelites thought in the same ways. They didn't have this scientific worldview. They weren't
Hmm.
evaluating things in light of science. And so when they talk about the universe coming into existence, they're not necessarily thinking about materiality. They're not thinking
Yeah.
about the physical cosmos. We do, but that doesn't mean they do. And so it's really important for us to understand the ancient world because we can get a better idea of how people in the ancient world thought about the world around them and existence and creation and what all that entailed, no matter which God they're talking about. And of course, Israel wants to insist that it's their particular God. And that's great. That's one of the things that God was telling them. But we have to try to get into that culture to think about how they would have answered questions about creation.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? We as outsiders, we come to the text, but we kind of, and that's been my experience. I don't know anybody else in church. Um, but I mean, I love the church. I'm pretty sure Dr. Walton loves the church as well. But we must, and that's why that's the motto of my podcast, Dr. Walton. I mean, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I'm with you in all of there. But we need to be critical on many things about religion, and one of those things is the way that we interpret the Bible. And for most, and I don't blame it to some extent, I just don't put the blame on them, but in most of our church context we just don't have that teaching, that training, to be not a scholar. You don't have to be a scholar, okay? That's not the point, but just to be a better reader of the Bible. And that's why people like Dr. Walton and many others write stuff to a wider audience so we can understand a little bit better that this book, this library, we can call it that way because we're talking a lot of books in there. It doesn't belong to our time and era. It comes from ancient times. And this is something very critical that Dr. Walton is just saying about this. And I want to say something, Dr. Walton, and I would like to show it to you because it's something that really caught my attention. Um, in your book, the Ancient Near Eastern Thought, second edition, I have this. I don't know what do you call it, but I have this. I know I can find the answer, but I always like to see who is endorsing books. Okay, so I went and see your book. Who are the guys endorsing Dr. Walton? And I found something very interesting. I found Jack Sasson. He endorsed it, which is awesome. But the one that really caught my attention for the most part was a Dutch scholar, Karel van der Toorn. He endorses your book. I mean, that's right there. And I don't know how do you take it because, correct me if I'm wrong, Karel van der Toorn, he's not a Christian per se. He is. I'm not gonna say he's an atheist, but he is not a Christian. No, no, he is perhaps a secular scholar. So how do you react to that? I mean, he's endorsing your book, Dr. Walton. How do you take that?
Well, I can't assess the nature of his faith or the focus of his faith or what faith he has. But
Yeah,
he doesn't write as a confessional scholar. He writes
exactly. Yeah.
as a person with great expertise in
Oh yeah.
Assyriology, and
Yeah.
so he writes in that world. So in that sense, he's not someone who's writing from within the church, uh,
No.
but
Yeah.
regardless of what his faith might be.
Exactly. No, I agree with you, and I just wanna share that here very quick with the audience. So they might asking, okay, who is that guy? Yeah, this is as Dr. Walton is saying, he's not writing as a Christian. Actually, I was reading one of his articles and where he's uh, I, I just want to be charitable here. He was writing about the notion, the revelation notion that we have. Okay, that the word of God is the inspiring word of God, and how we should take that. So he wasn't. Um, he's arguing against that view that we have. That he says it's more of a social construct. Okay, so yeah, that's something that really caught my attention on this book that we have right here, Ancient Near Eastern Thought. Okay, I want to go with the second question, Dr. Walton, if you don't mind. So I mean, Genesis 1 is we're talking about the first book. And I remember in Sunday school, I mean, my teachers, they were doing any kind of strategies to put different colors to this story. On Genesis 1, God creating light and dark, the deep, and everything. So there is theology behind this narrative, right? Eh, if Dr. Walton, if I go and say, okay, we can correlate modern science with Genesis 1, uh, do you think is that a fair and good, sound approach of my part, or should I be just cautious not doing that?
I wouldn't quite use the word correlate because that means that we can actually read the Bible in scientific ways, and I don't think that we can. But I
Okay.
think maybe what you're getting at, and what I would say, is that the Bible is compatible with what science tells us. It's not talking
Okay.
about the same thing as what science tells us. So, in that sense, the correlation might be too strong, but it's compatible. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
there's nothing that you would read in the Bible that would lead you to say, "Oh, I have to reject modern science." And certainly, you might want to reject some of the beliefs of some modern scientists, but that's not the same thing as rejecting modern science. And so I find that there's compatibility, and I don't have to choose. That's the point. I don't have to
Okay.
choose the Bible or science. Rather, I can see them uh, both addressing important issues in their own ways.
Yeah. I was listening. I'm pretty sure you are familiar with this guy, Dr. Lawrence Krauss, yeah, famous atheist. And every time, because he had a recent debate with some famous YouTuber, um, and every time, because he's a scientist. He is a cosmologist, and every time the topic on science and the Bible is brought up to the conversation, he's very restless. He's very passionate. Let's put it that way. And he very strongly argues that no way, the Bible has no science at all. Okay, fine. That's his point. And the other day, I had an interview with John Day. I'm pretty sure you are aware of his work.
Mhm.
And I said to John Day, what do you think? I mean, they were not doing science, right? That was my comment. And he said, well, let's be careful. I mean, it's science, but it's prehistoric science, not in the modern sense. They had some notion about the universe, the cosmos, the world around them, but that was ancient science. That's the way he described it. Um, and I understand some others. I don't know if you are in this camp, Dr. Walton, but there are some others that they say no, they were not doing no science at all. Not just take that away from the picture. So, what would you say to that? It's a science in a prehistoric ancient wave, or it's definitely not science, and we shouldn't be careful not to conflating those terms.
If we talk about science as experimental science that does
Yeah.
experiments, develops theorems, hypotheses, things of that sort, they're not doing that. They
Okay.
certainly have a very sophisticated astronomy understanding.
Oh
They have a
yeah.
very sophisticated mathematical understanding. And those are studies that we put in the category of science. But
Yeah.
that's not experimental science. And it's certainly not trying to understand the world of microbes or DNA or
Well, atoms.
nebulae or things of that
Yeah.
sort. So
Yeah.
they're not doing science that way. They have a lot of um, assumptions about the world
Yeah.
around them that are not assumptions that we share. But you'd say the same thing about the Greeks, whether you're talking
Yeah.
about Ptolemaic astronomy or whether you're talking about Plato and Aristotle, Hippocrates, and their understanding of the human body and the human mind, very, very different. So, uh, again, we have to be careful if we get
Hmm.
thinking that the way I like to say it is that the Bible doesn't give us any new scientific perspectives.
Okay.
Don't talk into the science of our day. So, those are the kinds of statements that I would prefer to make.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the second question. Dr. Walton, you talk about ontology, non existence, functional origins, temple ideology, cosmic geography, cosmic governing principles. How do these concepts fit in Genesis 1?
Well, it's all part of the question about what are the Israelites doing when they talk about how the world began.
Yeah.
Ontology is the beginnings, the origins of things. How are they thinking about that? An example that I like to use is that if you went to a play and you got tied up and were late and you walked in just as intermission came up and
Yeah.
you asked the people around you, how did the play begin? One person might talk about the script being written. Another person might talk about the set being built. Another person
Yeah.
might talk about the cast being chosen. And those are all good answers. There's a way that you could say, well, yes, the play began in that way. But that's not the question you're asking. You're asking what happened since the curtain opened. And
Yeah.
so, in the same way, you have very many different perspectives on how the play began. Likewise, there are many different perspectives on how the world began. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about mythological things, built on the back of a turtle. I'm just talking about how they think about the world
Yeah.
around them. And
Yeah.
so, to that extent, we talk about how the world began in terms of material objects being coming into existence. And for us, existence is a material category. but we can't assume
Yes.
those same things for ancient Israel. And so I suggest that in Genesis 1, they're not so much interested in the origins of the material world,
Exactly.
they're interested in order, how order came to be. Now, in my early writings, I called that functional origins. That is how things
Functional
function.
origins. Yeah.
As time has gone on, I've found that order is a better word. People misunderstood what I meant by function, and it was a matter of some confusion. But order works a lot better. That God is bringing order. And so when we talk about non-existence, if creation means bringing something from non-existence to existence,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which we think of materially because we think existence is
Yes.
material. But in the ancient world, they didn't think of something existing until it was in an ordered system.
Hmm.
So ordering is what brings something into existence, and therefore creation is an ordering process. So that's what I'm getting at when I talk about Genesis 1, that it's approaching the whole question of how the world
Mm-hmm.
began with a different paradigm, a different framework in mind, because they're thinking about God establishing order. And
Yes.
we keep wanting to read it in terms of material because that's how we think. Um, so those are the issues, the cosmic governing principles that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That's the way that in the ancient world they talked about establishing order. The governing principles were how the universe ran, but not just the universe, how society ran, how the
Mm-hmm.
temple and kingship and all of those things, how they worked. Because in the ancient world, if you're talking about creation of order, you're talking both about cosmic order and social order. And they typically wove those two things together because to
Yeah.
them, they're both creation. So I'm really trying to help people rethink what's behind an Israelite concept of creation and what it would mean to them. And of course, that changes how you read Genesis 1.
Yeah. Uh, what about cosmic geography? Does that because when I hear cosmic, Dr. Walton, my mind immediately connects something with what do you call it? Otherworldly, spiritual, something transcendent, beyond human. So is that what the term is referring to, or is
No,
there anything else there?
no. So, of course, we get our word cosmos and
Mm-hmm.
cosmic from Greek, and etymology isn't always a sound tool. But in Greek, cosmos refers to the ordered world around us, the ordered universe.
Okay.
Cosmos is just another term for universe, but it specifically speaks to the concept of order. And so we have the ordered world, and then, of course, the opposite is the non ordered world, which is chaos. And so, in that sense, we have, um, uh, when I talk about cosmic geography, I'm talking about how people envision the shape and structure of the universe.
Mm.
So we think of an expanding universe with these stars and galaxies, uh, billions
Yeah.
of them, light years away. The idea of the Earth rotating and revolving with the moon moving around, those kinds of things are all part of our cosmic geography.
Yeah.
When we talk about the Earth as a globe or a sphere, that's part of our cosmic geography. Their
Yeah.
cosmic geography, of course, was very different.
Oh
They
yeah.
thought in terms of a flat Earth, basically a single continent, a solid sky, waters above, waters below. And the point that I make is that when God gives scripture to Israelites, he doesn't try to change their cosmic geography. He speaks
Yeah.
into it. He doesn't try to upgrade it. They don't have cosmic geography 2.0. It's he just works with what
Yeah.
they've got.
Yeah.
And so, so in that sense, we see again that God is not upgrading them by giving them new scientific information.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, people. That's the. Look at those endorsements. Jack Sasson from Vanderbilt University. Dr. Walton, I would like to just read those two paragraphs from these two big guys. And perhaps you might be asking, why is this guy reading these endorsements? I'm a big fan. I'm a Carol Van der Thorn big fan. So that's why, and also because it's very weird. It's not usual to find this guy endorsing someone else's book. So that drew my attention right there. So Jack Sasson says, anyone seeking a better understanding of how the Hebrew Bible achieved its singular vision of the divine forged a language that still speaks to many today, okay, that's us, should welcome this second edition of John Walton's book. It delivers succinct presentations of major literary achievements among neighboring cultures, even as it clarifies the many ways Israel shaped individual meanings and teachings from or against them. Okay, that's Jack Sasson, and then Carol Van der Thorn. This is an amazing book. Okay, that what a good way to start an endorsement. This is an amazing book. Uh, I'm saving money to buy your book. By the way, unless somebody want to give it as a birthday gift, it takes the reader on a tour of the world of the Bible in a way that makes ancient texts come alive. Yes, everything that matters is here, and Watson is the teacher we would all love to have. I agree with that. Unmatched for clarity of thought and power of presentation, this classic introduction to ancient Near Eastern culture is now available in an updated edition. There you go. Amazing. Okay, let's stop that. Okay, let's go with the third questions, Dr. Walton. So, oh, by the way, just for anyone who is not aware, this concept of ontology, what is that? I mean, for someone that, me included, what's when they talk about ontology, what's the whole term all about?
Ontology is just the idea of how things began, where we come from,
Okay,
how things started. So it's just that kind of idea.
thank you. Okay, so in third question, Dr. Walton, in what ways Israelite cosmology differ and parallel the other ancient Near East cultures such as Egypt and Mesopotamia?
Well, one of the most striking contrasts with some of the Mesopotamian traditions is that in those Babylonian cultures, creation often took place through conflict. The
Oh,
gods had
really?
to defeat some chaos creature or something of that sort. And so there's a good deal of tension and suspense and drama uh,
Yeah,
in terms of the gods having to overcome this chaos. And
yeah,
uh, in the Bible, we do have the concept of chaos. It's in chapter 1, verse 2, but it's not personified and it's not aggressive. It's not
yes,
something God has to defeat. It's just there. Uh, I prefer the term non order instead of chaos because non order is just before things have been ordered. And
okay.
so it's like if you move into a new place and you've got all your boxes piled in the corner of the room to be unpacked. That's not chaos. I mean, it's just hasn't been ordered yet. And you don't have to defeat the boxes. You just unpack them and bring order. And
Yeah, yeah,
so in Genesis 1, there's no battle, there's no conflict. It actually does talk about what might be called chaos creatures in 121, the great sea monsters, but
yeah,
they're just there. They're part of the system, and so no problem. So in that sense, it's very different from Mesopotamia. Of
yes,
course, we also have the difference in why creation takes place. Of course, the gods are creating their own space. They're not creating it for humans like in Genesis, they're creating it for themselves. And humans are an afterthought. Humans are
yes.
created because the gods are believed to have needs and they get tired of meeting their own needs. Welcome to the world. And so they
Yeah,
figure out that they can create some slave labor and they create humans to feed them and
Yeah.
to give them housing and to give them clothing and to pamper them and adore them and amuse them and all of these things. So, again, very different, where in Genesis everything's focused on the idea that God is preparing this place for humans. And he doesn't have needs. He meets their needs. He plants the garden and he meets their needs. He gives them clothing rather than the other way around. So, in that sense, it's a very different approach to creation. Egypt is still a very different thing. Uh,
Yeah, it's a
they
whole
don't
lot
have the
different.
conflict aspect too much. There's one reference to it, but they don't have that aspect as much. Uh, but for Egypt, they have to defeat chaos every day. So when the sun god rises in the morning, he's got to do battle with the chaos creature, the Apophis, the serpent who wants to swallow the sun, and he's got
Yeah.
to defeat it every day because for them, creation took place every day. As
Oh,
order is brought to the world as the sun rises, and so they
I
see
didn't
that
know that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
very
interesting.
differently. So again, the Israelite cosmology is very different from both sides of the aisle there for the ancient world, but at the same time, they're thinking like the people in their world in that they believe that creation is involved in bringing order. So they're thinking like them about creation, but they see creation differently uh, from each of those on their neighboring sides.
Yeah, and that's one thing because something that really strikes me here it's the way I think it's in Mesopotamia. You can correct me if it's in my Elish, but humans they are created to be enslaved. I mean, just to serve the God's needs there. Unlike Genesis 1, which it's a totally different picture because God, if we can link it to Psalm 2, sorry, Psalm 8, I mean, we human beings are created in the image of God to rule over creation, and because we are imaging God,
So
that's total
yeah,
difference.
so that's all part of the bringing order. So God's
Yeah,
bringing order. So He's putting it all so that it works the way that it should. That's why Genesis 1 keeps saying it is good. That's talking about order. It's not talking about morality or design. God brings order. It's working the way that it should. But when he creates people in his image, we have to understand that being an image bearer in that context is being an order bringer. That's the subdue and rule. So we are humanity. There, it's not individual humans. It's not each human being is the image of God. It's rather humanity as a corporate group is the image of God and is given the job of bringing order alongside of him. So it's a partnership, it's a relationship. And so, as image bearers and as order bringers, we're supposed to be working alongside God to bring order. And ruling is one way you bring order. And that's what Psalm 8 brings up. And of course, subdue and rule is what Genesis 1 brings up. And so that's trying to establish the role that God created us for, not a role of slaves, a role of order bringers. In the ancient world, Babylonians or Egyptians helped maintain order because they did their rituals. And when they did their rituals, they were meeting the needs of the gods. And when they met the needs of the gods would preserve order. So, a very different equation that's going on. But even though the equation is very different, the base concept of order bringing is common among them all.
yeah, I agree. And thank you for saying good. It's God keeps saying good, not perfect. Yeah, because I'm not gonna spill the beans, Dr. Walton, but I have read some academics who argue that originally a human and creation it was a perfect thing, And I'm like, where is that in the text?
Well, that's a very common view for centuries, and
Yeah,
but of course, lots of times that was people who didn't know Hebrew, and people who didn't
yeah,
know the ancient world, and they were reading the word "good" as if it implied perfection. And of course,
perfection. Yeah,
Hebrew has other words for that it did not use.
I agree. And the same thing applied to Noah. You know, in the narrative when it says that Noah was perfect in the eyes of the Lord. Oh, look at this guy. He was the perfect. No, it's something we need a little bit nuance right there.
Well,
So
that's why
yeah,
we
thank
have
you.
to explore the meanings of Hebrew words very carefully. We can't
Exactly.
just take our English or Spanish translations and try to
Yeah.
understand those words. It's Hebrew words that we have to understand.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's move on to the fourth question because we want to respect and value Dr. Walton's time. Again, thank you so much for being here in our podcast, Dr.
Mhm.
Walton. So, question number four: the Bible does talk about a divine council running the destinies of the cosmos. How pervasive is this notion in the ancient Near East thought, and what's the theology behind it, at least from the Bible perspective?
So, divine counsel is referred to in passing a number of times in the Hebrew Bible. Um, in Job 1 and 2, certainly, we see the sons of God gathered. In Isaiah chapter 6, he's in the throne room and there's a group there. Whom shall we send? Who will go for us? In Micaiah's vision in 1 Kings 22, we certainly see a divine council setting, and even in Daniel 7, in his vision of the Ancient of Days. We have reference to it in Psalm 82, and probably also reference to it in the use of the plurals in Genesis 1. Let us make man in our image. And again, image there doesn't have to do with all the many qualities of God that we might choose. The image has to do with order bringers, and the divine council was engaged in bringing order. This is a concept that exists throughout the ancient world, a divine council. Often it was made up of the pantheon of the major gods. And But Israel doesn't. The Bible doesn't comment on what is the makeup. They call them the sons of God. That's all we get. So we can't inquire of them. Well, exactly what's the nature of these beings? Who are they? How do they relate to the gods of the other countries? We don't have that information. But the divine council was considered the group that maintained, sustained order in the cosmos. And so that's the role that they have. And uh, there's an interesting aspect that lots of people don't recognize when they think of these individuals. When we think of polytheism, we just think of the number of gods. Oh, there are many gods instead of one god. And it's true. I mean, that's true enough, but that's not really the main issue. The main issue is that in the ancient world, people thought of themselves and their identity in a community. They didn't think of themselves individually. And so individualism was not a thing. They did not draw their identity from deep down within of how I'm wired and those kinds of things. They drew their identity from their status and role in the community. And that's the only way that they could understand identity. Now, they also then imagined the divine realm in the same way. That is, that the gods operated in community. So it's not so much about the number of gods, it's the community of the gods. And the heavenly council, the divine council, was part of the reflection of this divine community, and not just how they worked, but how each god in that community found its identity, because the identity of a god was based on their jurisdiction, their role. Are they a cosmic god? Are they a city patron god? Are they a national god? Are they an ancestral god? What's their identity? What's their role? And so the divine council is part of the reflection of that idea. And all the cultures of the ancient world had this concept. They all had the concept of God's working in community. They all had the concept of a high council where these decisions were made. You even see it in the Greek mythology with Olympus. And the Israelites also thought in those terms. And again, very interestingly, even though God tries to convey to them that polytheism is not the way that they ought to go, he doesn't. He still talks about divine counsel. And again, but we don't know how the Israelites thought about that. But it still uses the divine counsel idea. But
Yeah.
what's interesting here is that if polytheism created the concept of God in community, whereby each God found his or her identity, when we get to Israel, God says, first of all, the first commandment, there are no other gods before me. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean ahead of me, in priority over me. It means in my presence. That is, he is saying, I have no divine community, which is really interesting because that sits alongside of the divine counsel. But I have no divine community. But what the covenant does is God says, you are my community.
Yeah.
You, Israel, are my community. And I find my identity in you, and you find your
Hmm.
identity in me. So it doesn't remove the concept of God in community, it refocuses it to a covenant community.
Hmm.
Really interesting stuff. And that's kind of what's behind these issues. But the divine counsel is kind of there. Again, God tends to use the culturally familiar things.
Yes.
And you'll notice, of course, that the divine counsel shows up in visions.
Yes.
Isaiah, Micaiah. The divine counsel shows up in a thought experiment, Job. Uh, so the divine counsel, when it shows up in realistic form, it's not in a theological discussion
Hmm.
where kind
Yeah.
of all the details are being given. So those are just some thoughts on divine counsel. It's just an intriguing concept, but it is one that has its home and its roots in the ancient cultures that surround Israel.
No, I agree. I agree. And there is something here because I mean I've been teaching the divine counsel in church, and as you know, Dr. Walton, many questions are brought up to the discussion, the table of discussion. Uh, One singular question that always come up there is that does a divine counsel exist now? My answer is I don't know. I go I like to go the secure way here. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't
Uh,
know. Uh,
Well, the divine counsel, as it's talked about in the Old Testament,
yeah.
d- does not exist today in that form. There are those who want to give it a different sort of form that the Israelites wouldn't have understood, but I typically don't go that direction because I feel like we've got to keep tracking with their ideas and what they're saying. And the
Yeah.
way they were talking about it is the same way, or at least very similar, to the way everybody around them talked about it. And that suggests to me that it is a cultural aspect. In other words, I wouldn't get my theology from divine counsel any more than I would get my theology from cosmic geography. I wouldn't
Hmm.
try to figure out what's the significance of the solid sky for me theologically. I wouldn't figure
Yeah.
out what's
Yeah.
the significance of waters above for me theologically. God's just using cultural ideas that they have to communicate. And I think divine counsel is the same thing. I wouldn't try to get my theology about how the heavenlies work from divine counsel because that's just something that is still sitting there in Israel's uh, conceptual world. And again, God uses those things. He doesn't disabuse them of everything. He doesn't send it
Oh
all
yeah.
crashing down.
Yeah.
Just like he uses their cosmic geography, he uses their concepts of divine counsel. So I'm not inclined to try to make something theological out of it any more than I would out of cosmic geography.
No, I agree through and through. Uh, there's always people, in the pew. Um, they are very smart people, and they use logic very often. And one person approached me once I finished the class, and he said to me, "Well, if you say you don't know, I mean, if you say that about the divine council existence nowadays and you don't know, so you're saying you don't believe in angels." And I was like, "Okay, you got me there."
Well, there's a false assumption there. Angels are simply messengers,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so they're not the members of the divine council. Angels are not members of the divine council. So there are different things entirely. You can
yeah,
believe in uh, sometimes they're called supramundane beings. Okay, that is not of the human sort.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
and whether you think about cherubim and seraphim, or whether you think about Satan and demons, or whether you think about angels, they're all beings that we would imagine and have a good reason to believe they exist.
yeah,
But divine counsel is not of the same sort as that. And again, angels continue to be much of a discussion all through the New Testament. You don't see divine counsel in the New Testament, I don't think. Maybe some people do.
yeah.
So I've
There's
for people who are
right.
interested, I did a book with my son called
Exactly. That's the one I'm looking right now here. Yeah.
Demons and
Uh,
Spirits in Biblical Theology,
let me
and
put
we
it
have a
right
large
here so
section on divine
people.
counsel and all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. I know you wrote a book on demons and spirits, and I want people to be familiar with that. So there you have it. Okay. So demons and spirits in biblical theology, reading the biblical text in its cultural and literary context. There you go. It's yeah, it's oh my goodness,
Kindle's
I
only
haven't
10 bucks.
realized.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 560, it's 500 plus pages. That's quite a book.
it is.
Yeah.
But Kindle's
Uh
very, very affordable there.
oh yeah, yeah, not $10. So people go ahead, and it's you can go and get that book, and get yourself immersed in this topic, just for those who are interested. Okay, let's continue here. There's something else I would like to say here about the whole thing that you're saying. It's a cultural thing. I think it was oh my his name is escapes me right now. But basically, there's a lot of stuff extract from you call it the cultural river. That's the
Mhm.
concept you use. Um, and this is a personal question, Dr. Walton, because just like the divine council thing, there's some other stuff, concepts, coming from that time and period, ancient times, that I'm always wondering what kind of application, because I'm not an enemy of application when it comes to the Bible. Um, I think there are some people who overstates the application thing, but I'm not an enemy of application. So what I'm trying to get at here is that there are some stuff, ancient stuff, that I'm always wondering, do they have application in my time? Okay, and I'm always using that kind of lens in this kind of things, because I understand these ancient things, but I also understand that I need to be very careful in not taking something out of context and trying to impose it on my time. So overall, what I'm trying to say, Dr. Walton, is that I know it's the word of God, but it's also a true thing that there are some stuff right there in the text that just don't apply to my period here nowadays in the 21st century um, uh, time. Do you think that's because there are people that might take it as a heresy? That so what do you think about that approach? It's
So
fair, sound.
a phrase that I use a lot is that the Bible was written for us, but it was
Yeah,
not
I
written
know.
to us.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not written to us. That recognizes its ancient context, its ancient
yeah,
culture, its ancient language. It's not written to us, but
yeah,
it's scripture, it's God's word. So it's written for us. Now, here's the thing, if we want to apply it, get the part that's for us, that
yeah,
should come from the message it had to them. So I have to figure out what the message was to them before I can say, what's the message for me? The message to them wasn't, you all need to believe there is a solid sky. That's not the
yeah.
message to them. The
Cosmic
message to
ocean.
them is God created the cosmos, whatever its shape is. So
Yeah,
the message for me is not, oh no, I have to believe in a solid sky, right? The message for me has to come out of the message to them. Now, lots
yeah.
of people want to read the text from their own vantage point, which makes
Yes,
sense. It makes sense because they say, "Well, I'm a Nigerian. I want to read it as a Nigerian, or I'm a
yes.
Guatemalan. I want to read it as a
An
Guatemalan,
African.
or I'm
Yeah.
an immigrant, or I'm a woman, or I'm a, all of these. I'm a Presbyterian.
Yes.
They want to read from their vantage point. I'm a Christian. I'm a theologian. So people want to read it from their vantage point, and we do need to do that eventually. But my contention is we have to start by reading it as an Israelite.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
is, read it from their vantage point, because that's where the authority is. And if we want the authority of the message of God to be something that can be applicable to us, we have to figure out exactly what that authoritative message is as best we're able to. So, yes, by all means, seek relevance, read from your vantage point, do application, but that's going to be most productive, most sound when you're doing it on the foundation of what the message was in an Israelite context.
Thank you for that. Okay, people, what you're looking on the screen, it's okay, Dr. Walton, for me, this is your fest.
Yeah,
So this is a collection of essays written in honor of Dr. Walton and his work. Uh, and look at the title. It's just the same phrase, the catchy phrase that Dr. Walton just told me. For us, but not to us. My mentor, Dr. Michael Heiser, the late Michael Heiser, he used to he appropriate for, of that phrase, and he gave the credit to you.
hmm
He took that phrase from you. So yeah, thank you for that question because yeah, for us, but not to us. Okay, that's the main difference right there. So
and you'll
that's
notice also that the Kindle price on that's very affordable.
yeah, it's very affordable. Yeah, it's
So
very
the
affordable.
the picture on the cover there was drawn by my son.
I love it. I
Yeah,
mean, I
and
love it.
he
Yeah, it's
also
beautiful.
contributed. Both my sons contributed articles. So one of the editors is Josh, my one son, and the cover was drawn by John, my other son, and both of
No,
them.
it's a beautiful cover.
Yeah,
I love it because I mean, especially Leviathan. I just love the
yeah,
way he
yeah,
it's just the subterranean waters right there. Okay, let me ask you something about this picture. What is that light, that pillar of light right there? What is that? I mean,
yeah.
it's connecting with the.
So
I don't get it.
right at the top there, you might not recognize that's the heavenly temple, and and
That's where God
down
lives.
on
Yeah.
earth it's the Solomon's temple. And so the pillar, the beam, is meant to try to convey the inherent connection between uh, the idea of the heavenly temple and the earthly temple.
Oh, hmm. Look at that, huh? And then we have the solid dome right there.
Yeah, the solid sky,
Uh
the waters above, the waters
yeah,
below, pillars of
yeah,
the earth. Yep.
yeah. You know, I don't know if you're aware of Daniel Sarlo. He recently published his dissertation, And he argues that the temple of God is not above the waters, but on the side, like within the cosmic waters, not on top of it, just like the sun. So that's an interesting view because that's not the usual view I read from you, scholars.
Well, I
So
mean, you do have, in Mesopotamia, Ai is the god of the fresh waters,
okay.
and his temple, in theory view, is something that's actually found in the waters. Um, but
Oh,
but of course, his earthly temples were not built in waters.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's I didn't know that. That makes sense. Okay. All right. So let's move on, people. We're almost done, Dr. Walton. Let's go with the fifth and last question today here, people. Just let me grab here very quick. So this is a favorite question of mine because, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the favorite questions for everybody out there because it has to do with the afterlife.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Walton, what can you tell us about ancient concepts of afterlife in the ancient Near East thought? Is there a monolithic view on this matter on the Bible? I forgot to include that in the
Yeah.
sentence. Yeah.
So certainly in the ancient world, there's not a monolithic view. The Egyptians, as most anybody
Yeah.
knows, that the Egyptians thought very differently about the afterlife than anybody else in the ancient world. So you have to kind of bracket out the Egyptians and say
Yes.
they've got their own thing, and
Yeah.
the travels through the netherworld and the beatific afterlife and
Yeah.
just all the concepts that uh, in the Egyptian world. But the biblical view in the Old Testament is not like the Egyptian view at all. It's like the general Mesopotamian West Semitic view, where everybody goes to another world. It's a place of non order, it's not a place of
Yeah.
punishment. There's no reward and punishment in the afterlife. There's no God there, and so again, there's no order to be brought about. And so the Israelites share that view because God doesn't tell them any differently.
Yes.
Again, God leaves the default view in place. And so we have Psalms that say nobody worships you in Sheol, in the netherworld. Um, God has access. Even if I go to the netherworld, you can find me. God has access,
Yeah.
but it's not a place of his presence. They think that any reward and punishment has to be given in this life because they don't see any in the netherworld. And so, for the most part, Israel shares the default view in the larger ancient Near Eastern world, not Egypt, but the rest of the ancient Near Eastern world view. Uh, Because the situation is, if God doesn't give them new information, then they kind of have the default view. They think
Yes.
like the people around them. And this is that kind of case
Yeah.
where they think in those terms. Now, there are some passages that people read as if they talk about a different view of afterlife. And sometimes even the translations point in that direction. And I've dealt with those
Hmm.
in some of my writings, especially the book called Old Testament Theology for Christians,
Yes.
where I talk about afterlife. Again, some people seem to think that the Israelites thought they would be with God after death. But again, the texts they use for that just don't say that. So that becomes a problem.
Yeah. Like I told you, this is a topic close to my heart because, again, um, being the word of God, the Bible um, is not beyond being what's the word? Because I don't want to, but it's not beyond questioning, right? Basically, the logic of it. For example, they talk about these heavenly journeys. I heard these things, right? And I went to I mean Paul himself. He's the guy who said, "Okay, I know of a man, 14 years ago, who was transported to the third heaven." So, but in terms of the afterlife, I my perception, Dr. Walton, is that many people is drawing from some, if not many, cultural understandings. We can say folk understandings of how the afterlife works. That's one way. At least that's how my logic works. The other way is that these people, and I'm not going to specify which peoples because I'm just saying this overall. But the other way is these people were getting information from I don't know if I can put it this way, but these people were getting information from people who is no longer living here, from the dead, if I can put it that way. And they were like taking that info and putting into in writing form. And I think the Israelites, maybe not the Orthodox, if I can call it that way, but that was something part of the society then. Uh, because, as you said, there's no monolithic view on this. So how is that possible that people from Egypt is having one view on this, people from Israel having another view, and Ugaritic some other views, weird views about the afterlife? But how do they know? Are they speculating, Dr. Walton? I mean, is
Yes,
there a space for speculation?
yes, they're speculating.
Okay.
I don't think there's really any other alternative view. They're speculating again for Israel. They're speculating in the world in which they live. They don't have revelation.
Exactly.
They don't
Oh,
have revelation
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
So they're not projecting some kind of Christian view of the afterlife. They don't have that view. God didn't give them that view. And so they're just working with what they've got. And everybody else is working just kind of on the basis of what their philosophy about the nature of the world and life and death, and they're speculating.
Yeah, and and I have experienced this in church. When you use some words like that, speculation, it's like a bomb in the ear of the people. Because, oh no, it can't be no speculation in the word of God. But that makes sense. I mean, they are really doing a lot of speculation. What the afterlife look like?
Well,
And
you've
I
always
don't
got
see God approving of that.
no, you always have the basic question. If you say that the afterlife is this, or that the Israelites believe that, or that this passage says this, our question's always the same. What's your evidence? But
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
the strongest interpretation is the one with the strongest evidence. What's your evidence?
Yeah, just straightforward. Well, what's the evidence right there? Okay, that's it for the question, Dr. Walton. I have enjoyed this conversation, people. I just want to say this as a closing remarks here. There's just not other way. I mean, it's important to interpret the Bible in its original context. And I got the man here who has been writing about this stuff from how many years, Dr. Walton, now?
Uh, coming on 50 years. Yeah.
Wow, 50 years. Look at that. I mean, that's a whole life, people.
Hmm.
And I think, and this is something I was saying off camera, Dr. Walton. I think we should. I mean, personally, I feel thankful because, I mean, let me tell you something, Dr. Walton. I'm in college, but I suffer when I get to do an essay. I mean, when I get to do a 5 pages essay, I suffer because it's like eternity. I want to finish just as soon as possible. And you guys go on and write 500 pages book, 400 pages book. I mean, I just feel appreciation and admiration for you scholars, biblical scholars, who is really, it's a craft of its own, what you're doing there. And it's particularly Dr. Walton has been writing a lot about this stuff. It's an excellent. Oh, look at this. There's a message here for Dr. Walton. Thanks, Prof. John H. Walton Marr, for this amazing interview. Thank you. My pleasure. Yeah, Dr. Walton, what I like about his work is that he's expanding. Like many of his works have been translated into Spanish. Now we're expecting from him to speak in Spanish.
No habla
But
español.
no, yeah, no,
Muchas
I'm just kidding.
gracias.
But yeah, just having his work translated into Spanish is a great deal. Like really, people, because I understand that there are a lot of people out there who really want to learn about this stuff, but they can't because of the language barrier. So I think this is something that it needs to be commended for because they are thinking beyond boundaries and frontiers, coming to people who uh, doesn't have this but a lot of his books are translated into Spanish, so we need to take advantage of that. Dr. Walton, your final hit us with that.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I think you lost me. Can you hear me
I-
now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
Can you
okay,
hear
okay,
me?
yeah. Sorry, I lost you for a second. No, I was just asking you for the final comments, Dr. Walton.
Well, I think that all of what I've done in Old Testament studies and in ancient Near Eastern backgrounds is really encouraging people to take their Bible study seriously,
Oh,
uh,
thank you. Yeah,
to to
yeah.
pursue the authority of the text because that's what we believe about the Bible, and we pursue that authority of the text by tracking with the author. Tracking with
Yes.
the author means trying to read it the way that he intended his Israelite audience to understand it. And that's the way that we will safeguard our theology, will safeguard our conversations on difficult issues uh, when we can truly understand how the authority of the Bible works and are committed to tracking with it.
Thank you for that. I want to ask you one last favor, Dr. Walton. Can you just show us that your newest book, please? Can you put it on the screen right there so people can see it? Yeah. Okay, people. That's the new Dr. Walton's newest book. Okay, new explorations in the lost world of Genesis. I need to ask you something, Dr. Walton. When will we have an interview on that book?
Whenever you want to sign it up. This is
Thank you.
actually
Thank you.
launching on Amazon this week. April
Yes.
15th is the launch of this book.
Since I follow you on Amazon, I got the notification on my email.
Mhm.
So yeah, people right there, you just this is the latest work of Dr. Walton. Anything else you have in the pipeline, Dr. Walton, for
Well, I have a
now?
two-volume commentary on Daniel.
Ooh, on what series?
That's in Erdman's Nycot series.
Really?
Uh,
Oh,
so you can find the first volume on Amazon already, although it's not coming till November. But the
I mean, Nika. Yeah.
first
No.
volume's on 1 through 6, Daniel 1 through 6. It's about 900 pages. And the second volume, we're getting ready to submit in the next month or two on
Wow.
7 through 12. That'll be about 800 pages. So
Wow.
it's
Okay,
that's
that's
going.
that's yeah, that's a bonus here. Thank you for that. I didn't know that. I mean, for us, we are aware NICAD is one of the most prestigious Bible commentary series in the world. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. So I didn't know that. So this is what do you
So you
call
can
it?
you can already find it posted on Amazon, even though it's not coming till November.
Okay, I'm going to. Okay, if I can have you right here before you leave, I want to see that with you here online. Daniel Nika, right? Let's see. Oh yeah, it's right there. Oh my boy, I'm going to die right now. Let me share the screen right here very quick. We need to see this. People, this is gold. I mean, this is because I didn't know about this. This is a gold announcement here. Okay, there you have it. Wow. Yeah, Aubrey Booster and John H. Walton, chapters 1 through 6, the book of Daniel. Ugh. Wow. Okay. I'm worried because My wish list is already wide. Wow. I mean, can I? How many years in the making to write the first six chapters?
About 7 years.
Wow. Dr. Walton, I'm going to tell you the same thing I just say to all the scholars that I have the pleasure to interview with. I expect you to live the patriarchal ages. Yeah, because we would like to continue enjoying your scholarship. Thank you for that announcement. I didn't know about that. Now I know. So I'm happy. Okay, everybody. Thank you. We want just to say just thank you to Dr. Walton for this interview. We hope to have our schedules ready so he can come back on another episode. We're going to work it out to find a way to have him once again. Dr. Walton, this is a platform for you scholars. Thank you for your scholarship. Thank you for all your work. It's been inspiration for us to better understand the Bible and to have a better argument to talk about that because we love the Bible, we love God, we love the church. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to prepare ourselves and be an informed person to talk about this stuff. So thank you so much for that. That's all I can say.
Thank you for
Yeah.
providing this kind of ministry and communication to these audiences that really want to know more. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. No, thank you for your encouragement. And part of my job is to translate portions, extracts from these interviews into Spanish. So people who can't do in English, they can have it in their own language. So where your encouragement is a good thing to keep it up. So thank you for that. Everyone, just to remind you, the following interviews, Dr. Helen Bunn from Edinburgh is coming to the show to talk about her book, The First Biography of Jesus. So keep an eye on that. Also, the greatest, I love this man. Dr. James Vanderkam is coming to the show to talk about his two massive volumes, which I'm sure Dr. Walton has those volumes right there in the bookshelf to talk about Jubilees, the book of Jubilees. Yeah, please shouting. Ah, there you go. Okay. Since I don't have them, Dr. Walden do have them. So thank you for that. So he's coming to the show, and just keep an eye on that, just to take part in these interviews and take advantage of that. Okay. With that in mind, I just want to say thank you, and remember, keep an eye on all this stuff. Everybody, until the next time. Bye now.